it's a wet noodle. So if you like hammer the one side, the cymbal is literally like this, and then the second you hammer the other side, it's like stabilizes the molecules, and then it's super solid. It's science.
I'm so excited for this next guest, Mo Lowda and the Humble. This is my first time interviewing an entire band all at the same time, so that was like a fun journey of just everybody had such interesting takes and opinions. I just wanted to keep everybody involved. And my favorite thing about the episode was that this band that's been touring together, making music together since 2013, they're on their 5th studio record. They found out some stuff about each other that they never known before because we're talking about love of music and so guilty pleasures and stuff like that. So incredible band. If you haven't heard their music, maybe check that out first before you even jump into this because their music's awesome. I've been obsessed with all the new music that they've been releasing. It really is rock, modern rock in the cool way. Like it's grounded in what makes me love rock throughout all of history, but still feels like 2025. It has that intentionality. It feels like now. It doesn't feel like they're chasing something in the past. So really cool band, great musical opinions. Loved hearing the stories from the road, and I can't wait for you to love music more by the end of this episode. Before we do, I'd love to thank our title sponsor, DistroKid. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists get to keep 100% of royalties and earnings. I use it. You can too with our 30% off discount. Go to distrokid.com/VIP/love music more to get started. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music onto Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. And believe me, they are adding new ones all the time. So if you want to get on, TikTok was one of the cool ones that just kind of came out of nowhere. Roblox, there's all sorts of cool stuff on DistroKid that gets your music out there and you can kick off that career. And it's very affordable, especially with our 30% off code. Go to distrokid.com/VIP/love music more to get started today. The DistroKid app is available on iOS and Android. You can download it on the App or Play Store. And put your music out there. I want to hear it. Send it to me. And speaking of music, let's love music more with Mo Lowda. Love music more. Love music more. Music more. Music more. Music more. What's good, everybody? I am Scoobert Dubert, and welcome back to Love Music More. I am joined with the incredible band Mo Lowda and the Humble. What's good, guys?
Hello.
Hey.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, for sure. Could you each introduce yourselves so that we can know who's who for all the listeners?
I'm Jeff.
Jordan. Shane.
Kirby.
Sweet. I'm Scoob. So the first question that I want to ask y'all is, you are coming out with your 5th studio record. What's it like doing the 5th record versus the first record?
The first, we were in college. I don't know. I think there's been some growth and maturity since then. I guess amount of options we had on this one. We recorded it in I think 5 different studios across the country, which was really fun to kind of branch out in that way. You come into it with a different mind state. And our first album, we had 10 songs, and you record those 10 songs, and you're like, this is great. Now we have all worked in studios long enough and have written music long enough that we have much higher standards. And I think with that comes more detail-oriented writing, but also kind of this understanding of letting the song take its own shape during the process. So I think there's just a lot of things that you learn along the way. We're all coming from it at this point. As for guys who have produced other projects, and these guys work heavily in the studios. We've all written quite a bit of music at this point, so it's fun to come at it from a new angle. I think of just, like I said, more life experience and music experience.
Yeah, I love that. In terms of the songwriting, part writing, arranging, how much of that was done in pre-production, actually in the studio? How did that kind of play out?
I think this time around we wrote a lot of it ahead of time. It was very much like the old way of just sitting in a room and just working on arrangements together. I think only one song came together in the studio, but we had the first half written and then basically kind of knew what we were going to do in the second half, but we just had to hash it out. and we would have hashed it out before we got to the studio had we had the time, but we were just going in, so we got to basically use the studio day to do that. There's a couple songs that were like some demos we're throwing around, but more so I'd say it was jam in a room, kind of classic way of writing music.
Yeah, we would rent cabins for that purpose, 3-4 days at a time, to just, you set up your instruments on night one, you have dinner, you come back the next morning and you start working, and kind of kept that flow. And I think that was a great way of doing it. And then, you have a batch of songs ready to go next time you're in the studio. And I think it was really nice. We kind of worked in 3s and 4s. It's easy to be like, that's a great tone for that song we worked on, 7 songs ago. It's easy to go down the rabbit hole, but when you go to a studio with 4 songs that you need to knock out, I think it keeps you really focused. And I think that was something kind of new for us.
I love that.
Yeah,
Where were the cabins located?
Let's see, Lake Travis, Texas, Clear Lake, California.
Tennessee.
Piney Flats, Tennessee. And then the studios were in Joshua Tree, Denver, Austin, Lake Travis. So beautiful places all around, very inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. Do you feel like the different locations inspired different songs or kind of brought different things out of you?
I think it just, at the very least, it kept us really stoked on where we were. There's only so many times you can work out of the same spot, or especially when you're in your hometown or home studio, and feel inspired. It's different when you're working on a song that you are already stoked on. You look out the window, it's a desert scape or a mountain range or a lake. I think that was kind of the main thing. I don't think we're out here writing about deserts and cacti, but I think just being in those places kind of lifts all the spirits, and you realize you're really lucky to be doing what you do.
It also added like a good flow to everything too, because it was like we'd spend the day, then we would make lunch and kind of just like be about the place where we were making, whether it be a living room or kind of makeshift studio that we brought. It added to the flow of like it being low pressure, but still having our work ethic about it, where, we would kind of not set hours, but when everybody was feeling it, we would go in, map stuff out, break for lunch, come back, break for dinner, come back, that kind of thing. So it just kind of felt like easy and
very comfortable.
Comfortable,
yeah. It's hard to do that if you're just in a studio. Like here, when I'm here with people for 3 days in a row, it's like cabin fever. Like hard to figure out how to spend the extracurricular time while not wasting time.
Totally, yeah.
But we didn't have to worry about that. We could just go for an hour, and then someone needs to go do something weird or something like that. Someone has to
it's so weird.
Because just remember,
then only a couple people are then in the room left, and then you have this organic, just 2 people worked on something that needed to get worked out, and then they roll, then someone else comes in, and so like there's like this round robin happening too. So like time is like efficient. No one feels like wasted. Time is being wasted if we're not drilling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, like in the studio, I think like you don't get that luxury unless you have a serious amount of money and get to do that. But I don't think that's reality for a lot of people anymore. Definitely not us.
Yeah, and also there's like a certain benefit to creative constraints too, right? Like if you had infinite time and infinite money, you could end up like Chinese democracy situation.
Yes.
Curious in terms of when it's time to take a break or when it's time to call it for the day. Are there like any indicators as a band that's been together for like a long time, and are you able to like read it on each other's face? Like, okay, it's time to call it. Yeah.
I think we're pretty damn good at that. It's usually if someone's like, all right, okay, let's take a minute. It's usually they're just the first one to pipe up and say that. Everybody's not like, what? Really? We were just getting into something. Yeah. It's always, you can feel that. And we hang out with each other quite a bit that you just know. And I think we're also comfortable. I don't know who I heard say it, but I've really kept this with me for at least the last year or two in writing. And it's this feeling of like, you don't want to ditch an idea because you always think it's going to be your last good idea. And I think just knowing that having the confidence in the fact that we're going to write another good one. We're going to write 100 good ones.
Yeah.
Let the spark go, because that is the roadblock. Throw it in another song or just let it marinate for years. Who cares? And there's a graveyard of songs. There might as well be a graveyard of parts, and that's okay. And I think just not letting that slow up the momentum is huge.
That's a very strong thing to learn, though. That takes. I think that's. I'm still working on that. I'm definitely better than I ever have been, I'd say. But that was always a hang up being younger and having access to a studio.
Yeah, sure.
And like the feeling like time's running out, so you have to do it. You know what I mean?
It's easier in the writing process rather than the recording process.
Yeah.
I'm talking strictly right.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
No, everything you're saying is true. I'm just saying, like, I've gotten better at that personally. Is what I'm just trying to say. Because it's always plagued me, but I don't feel it nearly as hard.
I think it's important to end on a good note too. Like
Hmm.
we've been trying this song for 4 hours. We just about had it. Let's get it done and let's make sure it's done. But like, I'm not going to be like, all right, let me learn a new part right now after playing for 10 to 12 hours, and then you won't feel good going to sleep because then you're like leaving in the middle of something like these guys are talking.
Then there are some moments where it's like we're kind of packing up, and then like someone does a riff, and then everybody's like re-inspired, and it's like, wait, what was that? Like, let's get that before we wrap tonight. You know, that kind of thing.
I think that happens every time.
Yeah.
I know I was the last to pack up because it feels like I always like trying to squeeze more out of it.
Yeah.
What's good, guys? Scuba Dubert here for the Love Music More podcast, and I want to let you in on a little secret. One of my favorite new things, Minuendo lossless earplugs. So these are really, really, really cool. I've got 2 of them here. It comes in this awesome sweet box, but it comes with a bunch of little goodies like carrying case, tether, cleaning tools. But the real tech is in these little tiny lossless earplugs. My favorite thing about it is, 1, you can swap out any of the included tips. So depending on the size of your ear canal, we're all built different. You can get a nice, comfortable fit. But there's also this little lever on these adjustable versions that can go from 7 to 25 decibels of cutting. So depending on if you're listening to nu metal or jazz, you can just hit the little lever and adjust in real time. And I think that's really, really cool. You know, for the longest time, I was listening in those awful foam earplugs, and it makes the music sound like that. It just cuts off all of those high frequencies. And so I was always tempted to sneak them out a little bit. Oh, it's my favorite song. No earplugs. And then you get hearing damage. You have tinnitus after the show, and then you come back, you want to work in the studio, and guess what? Your ears aren't right. And that's why I love Minuendo, because you can just pop these in and have full fidelity with these lossless earplugs. There are 2 different versions. One is adjustable with the little lever, and then this one is fixed at 17 decibels. So check out Minuendo, Minuendo.com, or you can search them on Amazon and find Minuendo earplugs today. Get cracking. I think that's like one of the coolest things about bands. I feel like a lot of people now, including myself, do a lot of just like in the room alone, noodling. Like as you were talking about each of you producing records, I'm sure that you each have experience doing a lot of that too. There's something magic about that interpersonal, especially with people that you've played with for a long time. And you can kind of see where their head's going. Like you can kind of read their mind. You hear that riff and you're like, oh, I see how that could work in, or I see where we can go. Can you talk a little bit about that kind of energy?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the energy behind what we did on this one.
This record's like that.
Very much so. You talk about kernels, Jeff. Like having that little seed that, like you said, you can usually hear if there's potential, and fleshing that out all together and making things work in a room is like that thing that, you know, I think we all started playing music to feel. You know, that first time you jammed with somebody else and locked in for even a split second, that same pocket or whatever, it's like, oh, okay, I see. You know, there's so much human connection in music, and it starts with that, playing as a unit. It might get easy, you know, to sometimes have that be lost on you when you've been playing with a band as long as we have, but I think there's still moments like Kirby was talking about that re-inspire you. I'm not sure if that answers the question.
I feel that same. Especially because going in this and writing in just a studio for a while, you're like by yourself. You get stoked on playing in a band situation, playing with people. You get used to it because you're a human and you adapt. You start doing things for me and a lot of other people. You start going in the studio, making music by yourself. It's fucking kind of lonely, you realize. And then you get reintroduced to like experience and connection of playing with someone. You're like, oh my God, it's good. I love this again. You know what I mean? But it's like a practice to stay grateful for that because, man, I tell myself, like, not over it, but, like, tired and, like, not feeling it. If I was doing this as my day job, like, I told myself that the version of me 5 years ago would be doing this, and that's what he would have to be doing. That's what like, he was obligated, or, like, I'd be like, wow, what a dream. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I continually do that. Like, what would my 15-year-old self say, right?
That's a great job. That's the best.
So many times.
I'll give myself a fucking big-ass high five.
Yeah.
I don't even give high fives.
He gives high fives.
I get given high fives.
I'm just a high five taker. That's all I, yeah.
I get given high fives.
I'll let them come to me. Yeah. Speaking of hard work, I saw y'all's tour dates. That's just the first leg?
Leg, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, we took a couple months off.
This is a light year for us.
Nice. Can you talk about road routines? How do you stay fresh for the marathon that is your first leg of your schedule?
Just have fun.
Cool.
Yeah, it's easy when the shows are good. It's hard when the shows are bad. But
that's a good point.
We're very fortunate that we've sort of always, whether it's really slowly or incrementally, we've always grown. We've never had a tour besides maybe the first post-COVID where you'd go to a place that you previously sold X amount of tickets and you sold less the next time, which is always going to be a little discouraging. But that was just kind of the state of the world at the time. Yeah. Next time we went out, it was great again. But all it takes is a great crowd to send you happy and packing to that next show. People come out to shows on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and like they have lives, and they're spending that amount of time with us and having a bit of a late night, maybe on a school night. You know, I respect anybody that comes with any sort of energy to our shows, and they often do. It's rare that we walk away from one scratching our head and being like, where were they tonight?
We also have the fortune too of like playing really cool places, and that just like continues to be like, oh, we're going here next. It's like it doesn't get old in that respect. Even if it's been, a town that we've been to 10, 15 times, there's always new little pockets that we discover, or people invite us to places. And so it's just like, we're excited to go back to this one place again because of this, or, and then that just keeps like revealing itself over and over again. And it makes those seemingly long list of dates not feel as long because we know that like there's something exciting coming up. Like obviously the show, but then there's, maybe a museum or something that we haven't been to, or an experience that happens that, facilitates the show being awesome too.
Yeah, I think taking advantage of like where you are on the off days, like Kirby's saying, is important. Like if we're in Seattle or we're in San Diego or Colorado or something, like on the tour we'll be like, well, let's take off Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. This time we used it with studio dates, but and just like let's explore, let's go hiking, let's see what the city has. Let's go in the river. Let's like see what's fun or what we like to do, and you don't feel like you're working as much because you might have eight on days with driving and shows coming up, so you might as well enjoy your time while you have it.
I've got some big news, everybody. My vinyl record is out. We didn't make a ton of these, so these guys are gonna sell out, and I would love for you to get your hands on one of them because they're so dope. And it comes with a whole bunch of like liner notes and pictures and special stuff, the things that really went into making this record. And I want you to get your hands on it. So go to scoobertdoober.pizza or check out my Instagram for a link, or click the link in the show notes or the bio or wherever you're watching this to pick up your copy. They're going to sell out. We really did not make very many of these, and I want you to have it. It's like a collector's item. So thank you. Thank you for supporting my music, and I can't wait for you to hear it actually on physical vinyl. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
We have like really great fans too, and they just like are just so giving to us, and we've been very fortunate to go to a place in, like Buena Vista, Colorado. They'll take us rafting down the river, and like
awesome.
Golfing. You just can't, golfing. Like you just can't like buy that kind of experience. It's just we've been so fortunate with, thankfully, the music that we make. People relate to it and like it and want to share their lives with us. And so it's like we're just so fortunate to be able to do that.
We also really like to hang, and we play small places. So it's like you're face to face with us, and I think what that's done is create all these great little pockets of friends. That,
totally.
We're circling that date on our calendar. They are also circling that date. Mo Lowda's coming back in town, and it's not just to see us play live; it's to hang out.
And we're getting texts from people like, "Hey, I see you're coming through.
It's
like,
fun.
Let's hang." Yeah,
it's cool.
I share all these sentiments, and to tie it into the record, I think the last tour was my favorite because for me, like all these things are great. I love hanging with all these people, but the wear of the driving every day and tired and like never getting a little bit of recharged personal time can kind of wear it.
Yeah.
And I think the way I spend time at home, I have this studio and I kind of like just enveloped in all the time. It takes so much to just keep everything up to date. So I'm kind of used to always being involved with music. And when you're on tour, you're just like perform, drive. You don't get this like, you're really not enveloped in like playing or writing music unless you make time for it.
Yeah.
That's one because we had the goal of off days or studio writing days. I really enjoyed it because it was like we were doing all these things we already aforementioned, but we also peppered in like staying on top of like being involved with what it is to write music or actually just play it for enjoyment versus just perform it for an audience.
Mm.
And that's something in the early days was left out for me. And I was like, after a while, I'd be like, why do I feel a little weird? Because I didn't like do something I regularly do at home, which would be just like pick up a guitar, play an instrument. But we got that chance this time on the roads, and it really made a difference for me for like getting the full gamut of like the hang, and also just the side of me that like needs to kind of keep that part of my personality fed, like being involved with music. That was a huge part of this record, actually.
I like that, and I hear you too, because playing versus recording, it feels very different. It's both music, both very fun, but it is like two sides of the same coin kind of energy of something extremely ephemeral and something that will last forever, but it's both music. So yeah, that's an interesting take. Curious, how do you guys pick middle of nowhere, you're driving, how do you pick the like random fast food or something that you're going to pick up?
Yeah.
We just skip. Sometimes I just will not eat if it's like an 8-hour drive. I just won't eat any beef jerky or succumb to like, you're like, all right, it's 9 o'clock. We're getting to the destination in an hour. I'm eating at the QT or whatever, but we try to we do a pretty decent job.
We do.
We really don't fast food. Sometimes
desperate, man.
Sometimes we're desperate and we'll go for it, or we've been like out partying and we're on our way back to the hotel and we're like, all right, fine, we'll go to Jack in the Box, but it's not every night.
5 in a row.
Yeah.
That was our record. But besides that one, we slipped up for a full week. But besides that, we were pretty good. We found Whole Foods a bit.
We went to double cheeseburger rehab.
Yeah. Shitty
It
burger.
took like 8 years to figure out what makes me shit my pants, and now I'm good.
Now that we have those data points, we're
The data is in for sure.
Yeah, we'll try to do Whole Foods or like the friendly fast food that's like Cava or Chipotle. Places where you can still get grilled meat and veggies.
I hear that. In terms of instrument maintenance from physical instruments like strings breaking, cymbals snapping, vocal maintenance, how do you guys kind of make sure that you're in tip-top shape, you're kind of mending the things that inevitably come up on a long tour?
I take really good care of my drums, and I haven't broken a cymbal or a stick in like 7 or 8 years. So
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I broke one stick last year. That's because I bought these light jazz sticks to see if I could play.
Yeah, I think we bring backup guitars as much as we can.
Yeah.
And then I know from a personal standpoint, I dealt with some vocal issues, I guess 2021. And it was really scary. I was losing my voice a ton. And right now I feel as strong as I ever have felt. I have not lost it in a long time. Knock on wood again for me. But, it was definitely like a lifestyle change, but there wasn't a middle ground at that point between staying out till 5 a.m., talking all night, and going straight back to the hotel and going to sleep immediately. That was the scary thing. It was guaranteed if I stayed up late, it was gone. But at least I had a chance if I went back and slept, but sometimes I'd still wake up with nothing. I think it's just about, like, I know I lean in a lot when I'm at a loud bar now. I'll apologize and say, I'm sorry, I'm going to talk really close to you, but I'm not going to yell over this music. Because that's really worse than just singing.
Yeah.
I think this is the most I've ever sung in my life between recording and rehearsing, and I have solo stuff as well, and it's a muscle.
Yeah.
And it's as strong as it's ever been, so I'm going to just keep that going. It was after COVID that I was losing it quite a bit, and I absolutely attribute it to the fact that I wasn't using it nearly enough.
Yeah, I think that's the scariest thing is the voice loss, for sure. Yeah, just one night could kill you.
It's a great point about the talking, too. I feel like that's not talked about enough. You're shouting over the next band or whatever, trying to connect and have this really human moment at the merch stand or whatever, and and you overcompensate.
You don't even realize it in the moment. You're just talking loud enough to get it over the music, and sometimes you might not even be shouting, but even just projecting past what you normally would is enough sometimes.
Super curious about cymbal choice, because I love the way the drums sound. I was listening to all the stuff that is already out for this upcoming release, your 5th album. Curious cymbal choices. They all sound really nice, warm, sizzly. And then also, do you not hit them super hard? Is that part of your secret to keep your sticks and your cymbals fresh?
I raise my arm up like this, and then I go. Sometimes I fucking go to town on them if we're going to town, but mostly K's, K-Light hats, 16-inch, K-Light Ride 22. And I'm using the Oriental Crash Doom in the Zildjian Effects line. It's like uneven and like, it's just super scoot sounding.
You made a cymbal.
And then I recently made a cymbal with this dude Manj in Philly, You make your own cymbal, so I made like a made a light ride with him, and I'm using that as the other crash. But I switch up the crashes all the time, whether they're like 18-inch Abatuses or big old rides. I don't know, whatever the room is, whatever sounds nice.
So what's the process of making a ride? Are you like hammering it? Like how does this go down?
He basically like would show me, and then I would kind of just follow suit for like 2 hours and just like beat the shit out of it for a really long time. And I'd be like this, and he's like, no, and I'm like, well, I've been doing like this for 10 minutes. Yeah, but no, he would help me out, and then lathe it, and decide what kind of bell we want, if we want an unlathe lathe or whatever. It's cool. Yeah, it was a super fun experience.
Do you like melt the bell on top of? Is that how it works, or like do you stick it out and heat it up?
The blank is pretty much there.
Okay.
And the bell's already made.
Okay. Cool. So it's a matter of attaching the two. I didn't even.
It looked like a cymbal that was just like super super dark and like heavy and a little more flat than belled. Yeah. If you only hammer it on one side, something with like the atoms and the matter of the metal and how it's made, if you don't do the same thing to the other side, it's a wet noodle. So if you like hammer the one side, the cymbal is literally like this, and then the second you hammer the other side, it's like stabilizes the molecules, and then it's super solid. It's really science.
So amazing. It's so interesting too, like how there's like that regionality to cymbal making. Of like, you know, like Turkey is just where it's at for cymbals. Is there a reason behind that? Is it just like some like masters passing it down to apprentices, or like what's the secret there?
Yeah, I think so. I think they like Zildjian started by making cymbals for the Sultan or something like 400 years ago, and then like they had to get permission to make musical instruments for sale, not just for his use. It has to do with the government and military and all this shit. Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
The more you know, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, Zildjian's the oldest company in America because they started over there. They're 400 years old.
Oh, before America.
Yeah.
Fascinating. The reason why I'm always so fascinated by cymbals is I feel like they're so critically important for making rock sound modern, because like I feel like in pop production there's just like not a ton of cymbals anymore. Like it's like the role still exists of like excitement high end, but it's like fulfilled by other things to make it not sound like you're a 70s cover band or like trying to be like just a classic rock thing. Like your music, it sounds like now, it sounds like 2025. And I think that cymbals and all of these small choices really, really add up to like genre placement or like time localization.
Yeah, it's very true.
Guitar tones. Love guitar. Also, I love the sense of room in all of your recordings throughout your entire catalog. Would just love to hear a little bit about kind of like the way you guys think about it, because I do feel like there's this live energy to your music without it sounding live, and I really like that. Intentional, how do you go about that? Are you trying to capture more of like the studio itself, or is this some of like post-effect processing or amp-based reverb? So like how are you kind of thinking of the sound design of just creating your overall like band's palette?
I think it's all the above. Like
Cool.
song for song, riff for riff, part for part. You know, sometimes it's just like an in-your-face sound, and sometimes you want it to be a little more bombastic and organic. But I'll let you guys talk about the guitars.
I think a lot of the times it's almost reactive, where one person has one sound, you make a sound in response to it, and sometimes it needs to be reconciled after you record it because we don't do the pre-pro, and that requires some extra reamping or some auxes sometimes.
Could you describe what reamping is, just in case anybody listening doesn't know what that is?
Like taking a signal after you record it, sending it back out of your recording software or like off of anything like a tape machine, and reprocessing it either through an amp or pedals, and re-recording that sound source, and either using both of the same source or just using the new one in lieu of.
So same performance.
Yeah.
It felt like such cheating the first time I did that. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, I discovered something. Like this works. Yeah.
I for everything rather than plugin. Like plugins are great to get the initial sound, but they get the so-called automation out of something. Feels a lot better to actually do with actual real effects.
Yeah.
Faster, more musical.
Like that. I also like what you're saying about the conversation, not just in like parts, not just in songwriting, but also the conversation in sound design. I feel like that's not talked about a ton.
I think we're all very conscious of our tones. I know Jeff brought that when he joined the band 9 years ago now. Definitely made me think more about being purposeful in my guitar tones, things coming in and out, elements playing off of each other. We do a lot of ambient stuff just tucked in at the right moments, and sometimes it's just enough to lift a certain section, or sometimes it's backing off of, why does that part feel good? Because it dries up there. You don't realize how wet it is until it dries up. And then it gives you more headroom, so to speak, to utilize that later in the tune. I mean, we're rehearsing for this upcoming year of touring, and we've been in Cannes for this go through because we're doing a live session where we're going to record all these songs live.
Sweet.
But we're all getting even more meticulous about our tones and how does this come across, because you always want to. I think we're pretty damn good at it, but there's like this 2% swing that can happen on any given night where it's like, why did it not feel balanced? It's like maybe we weren't balanced. So I think we think about that more than the average band. Maybe we don't, but it's definitely a part of our sound.
There's some retroactive shit too, where you're like, you recorded it one way, it was sounding cool, but then you kind of in the mixing stage took it a little further in some direction. So as you reinterpret it in the live setting, luckily we have the headphones, we can be like, yeah, we ended up making this a wetter kind of sound in this, and that tone you recorded it with obviously is the source tone, but now we decided we want this to be, for instance, a little more ethereal. So let's revisit the same tone we have, but add a little more juice on it or sauce, for this thing. So there's like a give and take with like not doing pre-pro, letting the studio be a little random, responding to the way we randomly chose tones that we thought were good, reconciling them together, and then reinterpreting them again in the live setting once more. It's kind of like been the process, I would say.
I like that, closing that whole loop. Curious on the bass amp when you're recording, straight DI. What is your preference? Blend of the two, reamping. What's your process there?
Explain the bass itch.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever reamped anything like the bass.
On this one.
Definitely not on this one, maybe on other ones. Pretty convoluted. I've always thinking especially during particular songs where guitars might be going up really high for a while. So I'm in the studio, it's a 3 amp setup where there's a bass amp and 2 guitar amps. So there's center bass, 2 guitar wide, and just have my pedals set up so I can send the signal to the wide amps when I need to. And for the bass amp, there's usually a mic on the rig and either a direct out of my pedal board for the bass tone or before the pedal. Depends on what I end up hearing and being okay, I've got this effects chain that it would be best to have a super clean bass the whole time.
Yeah.
And you can mute it when it doesn't make sense. But then there's times it's no, I take the DI out of after the pedals actually, because I think that's the tone that's going to work. So it's on a per basis, but I'd say on average DI, whether it's from the instrument or from the amp or after the pedals, the 3 different spots, and then 2 guitar amps and a bass amp.
4 signals.
So 4 to 5 signals
track.
really.
Well, but sometimes there is no bass. Jeff's on baritone.
Yeah.
And then sometimes there is no bass. He's on guitar, but it's an octave down. And then sometimes it's the other 2 guys playing bass.
Yeah.
Yeah, we switch it up quite a bit.
A lot of switching.
Do you figure that out in the studio or when you're doing the pre-pro process of how you're going to structure low end?
We do that live, and it's always a work in progress because especially now I've been rehearsing, I'm starting to hear, but there's always been discrepancies, this song feels bigger, this song feels smaller. Manage it. Sound guy can hopefully help. More gear would help, but it was always just cost prohibitive and time prohibitive.
Yeah.
And now hearing it, we can I think luckily we're getting closer to fixing it at the source, whether play with this pickup, play with the drive or not,
Yep.
And maybe the next step would be to because it is 2 different bass sources, 2 different guitars going to my rig with different pedal chains, going into a switcher, then into a DI.
Yeah.
Might behoove us to finally get a preamp for both those rigs and then get those super reconciled, and then they're always pretty leveled,
But pre-pro wise, everyone knows that's when everything's figured out who's playing what.
Yeah. For as far as we wrote something in the room. Sometimes in the room, I'll write the bass line, and it's well, this is someone else is not going to do a play and sing that guitar part. Can you play the guitar part? I'm going to play the bass, and then just wrap up. Even though one person wrote one of these parts, they end up playing someone else's part.
That's great.
It's happens sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah, it's nice to have that ability, and it's not. It's definitely not that bass as an afterthought. I think it's that bass is so important that someone needs to be holding it down that can hold it down for that song,
Yep.
And then sometimes there's this freedom that comes with. There's 2 songs in particular that, in the writing process, I had decided I was going to be playing bass on that song, so so the guitar parts could be more complicated. So they could be weaving in and out of my vocals where I wouldn't be able to play and sing that. But now that I'm holding it down on bass, these guys can kind of flex a bit more, and it gives you a little more space. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt this very important broadcast, but it's time for one more advertisement. for myself for this podcast. What I'm asking for is for you to rate it 5 stars, share it with your friends. This is like the most important thing for this podcast to grow. So if you want to do this, you go onto the podcast screen, right? You click on the ... on Spotify. Under there, it says rate show, and you go and you click it. 5 stars. If you could do that for me, that's the best way for the algorithms, all this stuff, to share it out with the world. I know that it's a lot to ask, but if you could please just hit those 3 dots and then a 5 star, it would really help us out and helps us, get the word out and spread the love of music. So thank you. If you're listening on YouTube, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you so much. And here's the rest of the episode. Yeah. Have you felt that structuring bass like that gives you more opportunities with your kick drum low end? Like being able to push that further if you're like got baritone guitar that's carrying like those low mids, and now you can have like a really beefy kick drum, like that kind of thing?
Maybe, yeah. There's definitely some songs where it drives, but even I think the bass is always there no matter what. I mean,
to reconcile the bass, baritone, and guitar stuff, I spend countless hours just like in here just testing the tone, listen, checking levels, like peak level versus like the RMS, what the frequency spectrum is, and then I just make custom sounds that like kind of get the sound actually closer together, rather, so they're not as divergent.
Cool.
It comes in the fact that with a baritone, you can still get that register, but then now you get this access to like just extended notes, really.
Yeah. Yep.
And there is a little bit of a different nature of the low end. I personally try to make it so they're not as divergent, so that there's consistency with the drums cutting through always.
Cool. Yeah. I totally get that.
I usually play just a pretty tight, fat, maybe a little room drums.com sound. That way it's pretty consistent. And if we get spacey, it's not eating up a bunch of space.
Yeah.
And if it's tight, it sounds like a band in a room. So I think the kick drum usually is pretty consistent, and these guys are good at the bass. Never feels like it's out, even if it's a different register.
That's great.
I just found out this DI that I've been using has a super low end cut, and it's a bass DI. And like, it's fine if you push weight a lot of lows through it, but I don't. It ends up being fine because it's like this kick drum, just by nature of that thing existing, is always has more punch than my bass, unless it's a sub octave.
I'm curious about your guys' influences. That's one of my favorite things with bands is like, where's the overlap? Where are you guys like, yeah, we put this on in the van, like we're all about that, versus where are the places that, you come from different schools, you come from different fandoms? I'd love to hear from each of you.
The overlap, definitely, I think, in Rainbows to go to in the van. This record called The Party by Andy Shaw, we all really love.
Yeah.
Everybody's down with Grizzly Bear.
Yeah.
Is there another one that we all really connect on? I think those are the main
There's
ones.
a lot.
Local natives.
There's a lot.
Everybody's down with local natives.
It seems like a lot of them. I think it's funny enough. Every one of us has listened to similar music at different times in our life. Like, but we all like. I didn't know for a while that Kirby had knowledge of half the things. He's like, yeah, I love that record. As Tall as Lions came up out of like, I've known this dude for like 8 years, and we didn't talk about that one fucking time. And all of a sudden,
like last year,
we're like, yo, yeah, that's like the best record and like one of the coolest. And you're like, he knows every lyrics, and we're up front just like driving to him, just like singing it like together. Like, I'm like, I had no idea, but like, I thought this dude was from a totally different school, and like, so I think everyone's got this eclecticism that comes out at different times that you didn't realize. So that's probably why we have a good glue when it comes to a lot of agreeing about ways to approach certain songs or whatever. And then there's differences between all of us, you know what I mean? And like, and as you get older, and you like, I'm more into this thing right now, and he's more into that. But like, there's these weird through points that always are existent still,
Yeah. Any guilty pleasures? Anything you'd be embarrassed to share?
Guilty pleasures.
I'm not ashamed.
I don't know. If it's cool, if it sounds good, it's good.
Yeah. Don't be embarrassed.
This isn't guilty at all, but I've found sometimes it's a little polarizing. But that last Harry Styles record, I think is as perfect as it gets.
Yep.
And I think he gets thrown in this like pop kind of pigeonhole. And if you listen to some of that stuff, even his previous two, there's like indie rock songs on there. There's folk songs. Like, it's kind of all over the place. I think he's a G. I think he's amazing. I don't know, guilty pleasures.
I think for me, because I rediscovered Limp Bizkit last year.
Hell yeah.
I mean, like, I'm just
That's
like,
a good one.
but like, I love the nostalgia factor, and if I like slice out the voice a little bit and just listen to like the drum beats and the guitar parts, I'm just like, what?
It is
like,
sick.
What? And
That's
when I was
the
younger,
word for it.
when I was younger, I didn't think it was. I didn't know that was a guitar. Like, that's now I hear it, I'm like, oh my god, it's guitar. And it's funny enough, like, I've kind of ventured into like exploring guitar in a lot of ways that they had already been doing. And when I didn't realize, you just got it way earlier. I'm sitting over here thinking I'm doing something new, and like I listen to Limp Bizkit, I'm like, oh, I did that. Like, So,
That's what I'm looking for right there. That's the stuff.
Yeah.
Corn fans? Any Corn fans?
we listened to some Korn. I got through those lyrics when I was younger. I guess I didn't take them seriously, but like the music was sick again. Though. Like,
I know.
Ambience is crushing. There's so much cool guitar delay all over it. That
Yeah.
I didn't get when I was younger because I didn't understand that's what it was. I guess. You know?
Totally. I always ask my guests this question. I want to leave ourselves enough time to do it. So the show is called Love Music More. The segment's called Love Music Why. It's a simple question, but it's a hard question. And I want you guys to take it wherever you want to go. Why do you love music?
Music is life. Music is everything that I pretty much have ever known. A language I could definitely speak better than with words personally. So that's my why. I don't know.
I think what I still have, and I never want to lose this, is after feeling like I've written a good song or have an idea that I'm really excited about, like that pure, like I won't sleep that night, and I hope I never lose that. In that I'm still just as fired up about the next song I write as I was when I was fucking 14 years old. First couple, that's the why I love music, is that it still gets me there.
Yeah, I share that same sentiment. I'm gonna say there's different ways to answer that. There's it feels good to be excited, and there's so much shit that you see every day, and so much stuff to like. Do I like what I just ingested? It's because we're on internet all the time. We're seeing people all the time, a lot of interactions, and to be able to come back and be like, this one thing that's I can't even see still gets me more excited. And I can't sleep when I'm excited about it. Yeah, excitement, pleasure, and purpose all in one sometimes.
I love it because it's the universal language. You can go anywhere in the world and play a song and somebody knows it or can feel it. It's the thing that I think unites everybody across the world. Just it's the gift that keeps on giving in so many different ways. And there's never going to be the last song. Nobody's ever going to write the last song. It's just always going to be continual and everlasting and evergreen. Yeah, it's just really cool that it happens all over the world in different ways, in different places. And it brings people together and can probably tear people apart, but then bring them back together again. It's just such a...
Only Limp Bizkit.
Limp Bizkit, yeah.
It's wholesome shit, Kirby.
But I think that's why I love it.
I love that. And I love the sense of, you go to a different place and you can instantly connect over something. Or like the two of you that have been really close for 9 years, and you discover something new about your relationship, and you're talking about it now of we didn't know we both loved this record.
Yeah.
That's a crazy thing. And also same thing, it's so hard to wake up in the morning when you've got a day ahead of you that you don't want to do. And it's so easy to wake up or just not sleep if you have an idea that you just need to get out, or that momentum on a record. And it just feels like it's pulling you through at that point. And I appreciate too, the sense of you can step away for a second. That's healthy too. Music is like a natural rhythm. There's a wave and an energy to it where you want to keep giving to it. You want to maintain your skills and all that kind of stuff, maintain your instrument, like your voice. But writing that energy, finding that energy, I think all of those are super important takeaways. Well, guys.
You're a great listener. You just reiterated everything we had said.
I'm soaking it up, man. I'm soaking it up.
That's good. Not everyone can do that. Some people listen and they're just and say the next question, it's that had nothing to do with what we were talking about. Holy shit, what the hell did you do?
And here's another one.
Oh, by the way, where's the name?
How did you get
the name?
You're very good at what you do, man. Yeah.
Thanks. So where can people get in touch? Where can they hear your music? Where can they come see you live?
My number is 7.
Text Kirby directly.
Yes.
MoLowda.com, or follow us on Instagram, Spotify. It's all pretty much at Mo Lowda, MOLOWDA. And find us on all the things. We're always out there.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys, and I'll be in San Diego, so I'll see you in October then.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah, hit us up. We'll put you on.
All right,
Put you on.
Sounds good. Look forward to it.
Thanks, dude.
All right, dudes.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Until next time. See ya.
Cheers.